This seems like kind of a big deal, a little bit, in my opinion. I'm no expert on the subject. We have seized a Venezuelan oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. I guess it makes sense it would be a Venezuelan oil tanker, you know, not finding other oil tankers off there off the coast of Venezuela.
It's been an interesting day from the standpoint of news. As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, a large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually.
Jesus Christ. Every fucking time with this, he can never say anything without it being the most incredible.
And other things are happening, so you'll be seeing that later, and you'll be talking about that later with some other people.
It actually is amazing. Yeah, he truly has no self-control. The most bigliest tanker. Okay, look, here's the deal. We know for a fact that Donald Trump, along with Marco Rubio and some others in the White House, have met with a coalition of interests who want to open Venezuela up to foreign and business investment. And the way they want to do that is through that Nobel Peace Prize winning bitch. What's her name? The Nobel Prize Committee has conspired with these corporate and American interests to help facilitate regime change. Machado, thank you. To help facilitate regime change in Venezuela for the sole opportunity or the sole, you know, intention of opening the country up to be ruled by the West. So here's the problem with this, right? First of all, who wants this? Well, a lot of people. Marco Rubio really, really wants this, for one. Female John Guaido wants this. Bunch of oil companies, so on and so forth. Do the Venezuelan people themselves want it? I do not think so. See, here's the issue, okay? We were able to occupy and extract resources from Iraq. Do you have any idea how much work went into the invasion of Iraq? A lot. I know that in retrospect, it seems like it was a blunder from start to finish, but even the blunder that was the invasion of Iraq represented an enormous investment, both literally in terms of money and also in terms of resources. And I gotta say, listen, okay, Maduro is a bad leader, but so was Saddam Hussein. You know, I don't think we have a good track record with these kind of, you know, regime change operations, nor do I think the American people would stomach boots on the ground. Saddam was worse, IMO. Saddam was in many ways much worse. Saddam killed a lot of people, you know? It's not great. Basically, my position on this is there are people who have pitched this idea to Trump. Let's open up let's open up Venezuela. Let's make it vulnerable to Western investment, so on and so forth. The problem is they can't actually conduct an invasion. And I don't think they have a good plan B either. Because as far as I can tell, and maybe I'm completely wrong on this, I'm willing to acknowledge that if I am, nobody wants that bitch in charge either. There's no actual internal movement within Venezuela to overturn Maduro specifically with the intention of replacing it with that lady. You know, there are tons of people who don't like Maduro, but I have a feeling that a lot of the people who don't like him also probably don't like the idea of being invaded by the United States. They're better off with Maduro. That is true, 100%. The oil corporations don't want this because opening Venezuela up to Western oil extraction would crash oil prices. Well, yeah, we're not even opening up new wells here in the United States. There's no monetary benefit to doing this, you know? Though, if you invaded Venezuela and you secured a regime change that might be useful in the future, and I think it's more about monopolizing the resource to deny it to China because China relies heavily on oil exports and so on. All that being said, I think this plan fails at the first hurdle. There might be a lot of people interested in imports, might be interested in occupying and exploiting Venezuela. Who's actually going to do it? Do you have any idea how difficult it would be? Seriously. Look, we put trillions into our invasion of Iraq. It was planned months and months and months in advance. Huge operation. And ISIS still became a thing. And I would argue that Venezuela right now is even more prone to destabilizing than Iraq was when we invaded it back in 2003. I don't think anything's going to come from this. What we are doing, though, is making more and more of an enemy of the rest of Latin America. I know, Masaigu. You keep saying it, and I keep reading it. Thank you. Trump won't rule out a ground invasion of the South American nation. We know that there's no secret buildup. There's no, like, quiet plan to invade Venezuela that's being constructed right now, because if there was, it would immediately be leaked. I'm not trying to be, like, funny with it. That's just true. We know that. But Vosh, can't they just stage a coup? But how? Like, that's difficult to do, you know? All the people in power are Maduro loyalists or cronyists or criminals who just benefit from his presence. They would all just accept that lady being put in charge? You know, you can't just... A coup, when the next runner-up is somebody established and would be accepted by the general population and by the keys to power, to use a CGP Grey term, and so on and so forth, that's one thing. But she's completely out of the loop. Who wants her to be in charge? American Oil? Maybe? Trump? Marco Rubio? I don't think that social currency matters much in the government of Venezuela. No, there won't be a coup. Aren't oil prices already low? Yes. Here in Mexico, there's a bunch of obviously paid influencers and politicians floating the idea of supporting U.S. intervention. Wait, U.S. intervention into Venezuela or U.S. intervention into Mexico? Look, Trump has floated a lot of interventionist stuff. Both? Yeah. I don't think the people are in for it. Greenland, too? I don't think we're invading Greenland. I believe Trump has said he will airstrike cartel production facilities. He's said a lot of things. He said he would invade Greenland. He said he would annex Canada. They've been saying for a year now that they're going to start bombing the cartel in Mexico, and has that happened? No. The reason they've chosen Venezuela as a target is because they're enough of an international pariah that you can kind of get away with just killing their civilians willy-nilly, right? You couldn't really do this with Mexico. Like, Venezuela doesn't traffic fentanyl into the country. They're not picking Venezuela because it has nothing to do with national security. They're just the most indefensible target. Still, the seizure of an oil tanker is a pretty big deal. I think this oil tanker was already sanctioned, so... I mean, that's their excuse. Wonder what they're going to do with it. Wouldn't it be funny if they just repatriated it? Like, the Coast Guard took it and they didn't really have a plan. They're just like, well, okay. Just showing you guys we can do this. What's the Senate up to right now? They're talking about it.
Senator Kane and Van Hollen and also Brooks, Welch, Markey, and Sanders, who are stalwart defenders of the Constitution and the constitutional responsibility for Congress, not the president, to authorize war. The bill prohibits any federal funding from being used for the United States to wage war against Venezuela. To be clear, the bill does not prevent the U.S. from defending itself or its citizens against an armed attack. It does not prevent lawful counter-narcotics operations. It does not prevent humanitarian assistance to the Venezuelan people.
Well, that shit is not happening. Let me see if Trump is still talking about it.
Right? I think Qualcomm would be very impressed if they had even a little piece of that. But about 30 minutes from now, the site goes up, and all funds go to the United States government. It could be a tremendous amount of money. It'll also be able to have people like this keep, as an example, just one example. There are a lot of examples, people just buying them. It's somewhat like a green card, but with big advantages.
Keep putting people on the cart.
And when the child
This is before the announcement, then.
Enabling is driving hundreds of billions of dollar investments in, and most important for us, semiconductor manufacturing is very important. So we are going to be...
Which we, by the way, got extended in this tax cut. So, and you added up. Toyota just announced $10 billion in plants built, various couple of locations, few locations in the country.
technology has been foundational to our...
I think was 100 times greater than it is.
Looks like they're talking about a lot of stuff. It's kind of difficult to select for the portion where they're talking about the seized oil tanker. Just the little clip that we saw earlier.
Nice to see you. Well, thank you very much. It's been an interesting day from the standpoint of news. As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually. And other things are happening, so you'll be seeing that later, and you'll be talking about that later with some other people. Very excitingly for me.
Why are you ignoring the fact that her campaign won the election last year? I don't know about that, to be honest with you. Also, do you think that the same number of people would vote for her even after, over the past couple of years, she's demonstrated the fact that it is like her intention to facilitate a U.S. invasion of Venezuela? I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't think the people of Venezuela want that. Yes, that's what the people want. I don't necessarily think that's true. Does Venezuela have allies that would step in? Not really. I mean, no, the regional powers don't want the invasion of Venezuela, but not like allies. Venezuela has done a pretty bad job of endearing itself to its neighbors. No, Russia and China wouldn't do anything. Also, keep in mind, it's not really just a matter of how popular she is. It's logistically, how do you replace the existing Venezuelan government, you know? The Venezuelan government is itself a kind of kleptocracy, and then you've got a bunch of organized semi-criminal cartels that work with the government at their behest. I'm sure they're mercenary and wouldn't really mind working with other groups, but, you know, how, like, logistically, how do you coup that? I mean, it seems difficult to do without boots in the ground at the very least. Remember what happened in Afghanistan? Yeah, and it all fell apart the nanosecond we left. Maybe we can just send robot dogs? That's facts. I just don't think they have a plan long term. Or short term. I hope they try for it, though. It would be really funny if a bunch of leaked intel from the Pentagon laid out the plans that Hegseth drew out, you know, in crayon over how they're going to invade Venezuela, and it's just really funny to poke through. Yep, you can't just do a SEAL quick assassination overnight. Well, even if they killed Maduro, wouldn't he just, I feel like he would just instantly get replaced by one of his generals or cronies or whatever, right? Like, there's not, like, nothing would change. Yeah, it would basically be like you didn't kill him at all. The invasion of Venezuela will create a Catholic ISIS. I mean, you say that, you joke, but that's not entirely... That's not entirely unlikely, right? That's not impossible. I mean, if nothing else, Venezuela has consolidated and controlled a lot of the, you know, local drug gangs. If all of them split up and do their operations independently because everything's torn apart, you know, you might get kind of like an ISIS situation. God, they already have trouble enough with that. All the fucking drug runners in like Colombia and shit, all in the dense jungle that happened in Mexico. Yeah, it's been known to happen. Except the most zealous Latino Christians are evangelical converts. Converts are always the most zealous, but I don't know if I'd call them Christians.